Back with another episode of Pottawattamie County Routes. I am Todd Studer, and we have in studio, not first time on the show, but first time in studio, this is Jeff Franco, Executive Director of Pottawattamie Conservation. Good to see you, sir.
Good to see you again.
Boy, is it hot or what?
You know, some people would call it hot.
Yeah.
But no, it is definitely hot outside. It's miserable.
Yeah, but it's summertime.
It is.
And it's every single year. At some point, we're going to go through this.
Yeah.
We're going through it now.
Yep. And
what happens at the parks when we start seeing temps in the mid 90s and a heat index over 100? What's going on there?
so the parks, they tend to slow down. Is what it is. So we don't have swimming in our parks, which that's one thing that's a bit of a drawback.
Mm-hmm.
But people look for the water. They look for the campsites, and when it gets hot like this, it's hard to cool down. If you're tent camping, you try sleeping at night. That gets rough. If you're in an RV, you show up and you want to sit out by the campfire. You want to grill those hot dogs. You want to grill the burgers. You want to do that stuff. But a campfire on a night like tonight is going to be rough.
Yeah.
So things tend to slow down a little bit. The flip side of that, kind of the silver lining, is it allows our parks to breathe just a little bit.
Yeah.
And so it gives the wildlife, it gives the plants, it gives the trails, it gives our staff time to kind of just take a breath, recuperate a little bit, find their balance again, and kind of get ready for the next rush when weather cools down.
This is, I would assume, one of the benefits to having a park system where the camping is concerned that does not have reservations, that, people haven't booked way ahead of time without knowing what the weather's going to be.
That's right.
And so once it cools off a little bit, I doubt there's going to be much of a layover. It's just going to right back in again.
That's right. Yeah. The nice thing is about not having reservations, people can pick their opportunities. Yeah. So they're not locked into a timeline where they feel like, well, I have to use this right now, and they have a miserable experience in the park. They can find a date that's going to work for them, and probably more importantly, some temperatures that work for them. I'm talking about that right now.
Oh, yeah. Well, and I think I told you before, I typically tent camp.
Yeah.
And with a big canvas bell tent.
Yep.
And it would work. I could put one of those portable air conditioners in there. The thing is set up for it, but I don't have one. So, yeah, it would just get too warm. And it's just not going to... I can't sleep when it's 80.
Exactly. 80 and humid makes it really tough. 80 and dry, if there's humidity's low, not so bad.
Right.
Humidity in July, you get to June, July, August, and the humidity builds in, and it's hard to sleep at night if you're out in a tent.
So other than the camping, obviously there's a lot of other things to do at the park. And I'm assuming everything slowed down, not as many hikers, not as much going on.
Yep. Yeah, there's still just as many things to do. People just aren't taking advantage of that. One exception to that is, our educational programs, they probably pick up a little bit in the summertime. So our summer camps right now are chock full of kids out there. And this is the type of weather that maybe you don't want to say you want your kid out in, but this is what summer camps are about. It's about being hot. It's about getting out there, getting sweaty, getting dirty, getting tired all day long. Yeah. And a couple of years ago, we made the shift in our summer camps to get away from some theme activity to just back to basics. And our education staff has done a phenomenal job of turning that around and just saying, hey, we're going to get kids out on trails. They're going to be fishing. They're going to be canoeing. They're going to learn how to make a fire. They're going to shoot a bow and arrow. And this type of weather is perfect, and the kids are so resilient. Old guys like you and me, we tend to squawk a little bit at this weather. The kids get out there and they love it.
I recently did a show, I don't know if you caught it, that I went over to Narrows. And
I did not catch that.
I hiked a trail that I didn't know was there.
Yep.
And it was, this was really cool. And it's kind of like walking through the prairie, kind of like you do at Bottom Bend.
Yep.
Is what that trail is. And because I didn't know it was there, I held the camera out, and as I'm experiencing it the first time, I'm recording the show. Yeah. So I think it added a little bit to it. But to me, Narrows is one of those just fly under the radar kind of parks. But now there were people there.
Yes.
It wasn't empty. There was somebody there using the archery area, and there was a family on the playground, and I think somebody was having a picnic.
Yep.
But it was still pretty quiet.
Yeah, it's still pretty quiet. Yeah. The nice thing about Narrows River Park is you can get your boats out on the river. And so that's when the weather does heat up, that's one of our parks where you'll see activity heat up a little bit as well.
It's each park, and we've talked about this on the show before, Jeff, is so unique and serves such a different purpose.
Right.
And I'm sure that part of it is just, okay, this is where they're at, so we're going to utilize it. But it almost, to me, feels like design, that we want to make sure that we're hitting all of the different areas. And you're going to have a completely different experience at all 5 parks.
That, you hit the nail on the head there. And there is an element of design to this. Each park really is intended to preserve or highlight part of Iowa's natural heritage. And so you've got something like Botna Bend, where you have, an unchannelized, unstraightened portion of the West Nesnabotna River. And you've got bison and elk that kind of highlight their role in the prairie there. You've got Arrowhead Park, which is our first park. So that was probably not as much by design, but still highlights kind of these old growth oak savanna communities that are there. And then you've got Hitchcock. And Narrows River Park highlighting the Missouri River. Each one of those highlights a part of not just Iowa's, but Pottawattamie County's natural history, and preserves some of that in a unique way that you don't get at any other park. They really each have their own personality.
Finding the right care for a loved one can feel overwhelming. Assisted Living Locators is here to help. Jean Bonker brings more than 30 years of experience serving families and has personally navigated the challenges of elder care. She understands the questions, the emotions, and the weight of these decisions. Jean becomes your advocate, guiding you through options with clarity, compassion, and personal support every step of the way. Call Assisted Living Locators at 402-690-5467 and move forward with confidence. Are you in the market for stylish, locally curated fashion that's close to home? Visit Unique Boutique Iowa in Neola at 101 4th Street, your destination for trendy clothing, accessories, and distinctive gifts. Open on the weekends, Saturdays 10 to 2, Sundays 11 to 3. You can always shop online at shopubiowa.com.
Hitchcock, to me, is the one that I feel the most fortunate that we have part of the county park system.
Sure.
Because this place, I feel, could even hit the stage of national monument level just because of the uniqueness of what it is.
Yeah.
And you don't see this anywhere else.
Right. Now, the Loess Hills are extremely unique. And for those who don't know, there are 2 places on the planet that have a Loess Hills landform. One of those is in China. One of those is right here in western Iowa. What makes a landform is really kind of the depth and the extent of the surface on top of the bedrock. And that will actually influence the plant life. It'll influence the animal life. It'll influence the climate. There's actually a microclimate that exists in the Loess Hills as well. And so when you have kind of this intersection of unique ecological communities combining with one of the world's rarest landforms, you have something really special at Hitchcock. People come up there and they say, this place is incredible. We had no idea it existed. When they begin to learn about what's there, they see what staff over the decades have done and built there. It's oftentimes confused for a national park.
I think, too, that going at different times of the year is going to get you a completely different experience. This type of time of year, now obviously, with as hot as it is, there won't be as many hikers. But when you have a lot of growth and everything's very, very green, and it almost seems like the trails narrow. because of the growth along the sides.
Certainly.
But when you go in the wintertime or in the spring, then it's a lot more open.
Yeah.
You can see a lot further.
Absolutely.
And it's, as I said, it's going to be a completely different experience from one time to another, almost like you're going to another park.
Yeah. Hitchcock it's our most natural park that we have. Now, the highest percentage of that is left in really kind of remnant, high-quality natural communities. And one thing about the natural communities is they've adapted to different times of the year. All of the plants in there, I mean, there's just layer upon layer when you consider the ecology. And so each plant, as it comes up in the spring or the winter, each one has adapted to take advantage of that window when competition is less. So as you go throughout the year, you're experiencing one plant that has kind of stepped back in its role and another plant that has stepped up in its role, creating a different vibe, a different feel to the park almost weekly.
I know storms. I think it was last year. Took out the boardwalk there at Hitchcock. Any plans on getting that back up and running again?
Glad you brought that up. So anytime you have to deal with insurance and FEMA on a project, things are going to slow down. Fortunately, we kickstarted that project back into gear back in May. And so we're hoping to have that wrapped up in the next couple of weeks, actually. Hopefully the middle of July, maybe the end of July, that we're going to be done with that.
Wow, that'll be great. Because I've been by there many times, and it's blocked off because it's not safe.
It's not safe.
Yeah, it's not safe.
Right.
Don't go out there.
That's right.
But it'll be good to have that back, because it's a very relaxing walk.
It's a very relaxing walk.
And it's one of the few places, I would say, in Hitchcock where it is relaxing.
Yes.
Even the easier trails, any place else, these wouldn't be called easy.
There are two trails at Hitchcock that I would consider you can just kind of stroll leisurely down. One of those is the boardwalk that we're working on. The other one we put in, I think we finished that the beginning of last spring, actually, which is right out near the front entrance of Hitchcock. And it is actually a concrete path that winds through and eventually ends up at a landing that's down near the edge of the woods there. And it is U.S. Access Board compliant for trails. And so it's not ADA compliant. There's a different set of standards when you consider the U.S. Access Board for trails. So it meets the trail standards. So if someone has limited mobility, they're in a wheelchair, whatever it is, they're technically hiking a trail per the standard, but it's something that's very accessible. And for somebody who doesn't have mobility restrictions, it's a very leisurely stroll and really nice getting you through the prairie and to the edge of kind of these thin woodlands as well.
I was going to mention when you were a little bit ago when you were talking about the Loess Hills, my brother came out from Georgia. It's the first time he's been here.
Okay.
He's never been here before.
Yeah.
And I'm talking to him as he's driving north. He's in northwest Missouri. So the Loess Hills are there.
That's right.
And he said, I have been driving past these things for I don't know how long. And I don't know what they are. They're only about 20 feet high. And so I got to explain to him, well, what you're seeing is you don't see anywhere else.
That's right.
And I said, and get used to it, because you're going to be driving past these things the rest of the way.
For a little while.
Until you get up there.
A little while.
So that was kind of fun to see and to experience somebody seeing them for the first time.
Yeah.
And even though he didn't get into them, he was just driving past. It still had an impact on him.
Right. Even the people who drive up into Hitchcock, the road up there, it's a steep road, but people don't always recognize what they're going up into. And once you finally explain where they're at and what they're sitting on top of, you can see the light bulb go on, and they just say, okay, this is a special place. Yeah. This is incredibly unique. So I'm glad your brother kind of got the same experience.
Primrose Retirement Community in Council Bluffs believes home should be a place of comfort, connection, and care. From personalized support to engaging daily activities, everything they do is designed to help residents live fully and confidently. At Primrose, that's their priority, to put the quality of their residents' care and daily needs at the top of their list each day and every day. It's not just about where you live, it's about how you live. Learn more about life at Primrose by going to primroseretirement.com and then contact Jamie Bush at Primrose and discover a place that truly puts people first. What if your healthcare provider came to you? Me to You is an Iowa-based in-home primary care practice, bringing personalized medical care directly to your home. Especially helpful for people who have difficulty getting out, Me to You serves patients of all ages, from children through end-of-life care, from wellness visits and chronic disease management to preventative care and advanced care planning. That means less time traveling, less time in waiting rooms, and more time where it matters most. Learn more at me2you.care or call 641-843-8405.
Yeah, it was, I was just laughing a little bit. And I said, if you only knew how many conversations I've had with people that work for the Conservation Department about this, you'd go back and watch some of the shows. But anyway, so you talked about the different classes and the camps that are going on. Has participation in those been strong again this year?
Yeah, that's one thing. We continue to get stronger every year, and we're almost at the point where, outside of adding additional classes, we can't take more students on. There's some classes where registration is open-ended, and as many as you want to go, like our Night Sky event, which is highlights the Perseid meteor shower in August. I think it's the second weekend in August when that is. That is open. We've had as many as 1,000 people show up for that before.
Where are you putting them all with that many people?
So that time, it was up at Hitchcock proper, and the place was just crawling with it. The last few years, we've done it on the southern end of Hitchcock at Crescent Hill.
Okay.
And so there's a ton of room there, and it's just a fantastic area for people to lay out blankets because you get near the bottom. It's very low grades. You ski down these hills or snowboard down these hills, very steep parts of it. As you get down low, there's a nice area for people to lay out. You've got the kind of a crescent-shaped hill in there that blocks the view, the light from the city, and then you can look to the north here, and you get to see, those meteor showers as they come through. So that's where we put all those people. We haven't had 1,000 people in a couple of years, but every year we get a couple hundred at least. So a lot of fun that way.
Well, and it's being as close as we are to a metropolitan area. Having some place where it's still dark enough to be able to see that, I think, is what really draws. Because you've got a really large population. And I talked with Chad about this, and because especially when you go into Hitchcock or you're at Crescent Hill, or a lot of folks from Nebraska.
Yes.
That come across.
Yep.
Well, the way he explained it, and I said this makes sense, is, well, you just draw a radius around the park, and the majority of the population's in Nebraska, so that's why.
The ratio is about the same.
Yeah.
The same percentage of people from Omaha come as they do from the Pottawattamie side of the river. It's about an 8-to-1 ratio, somewhere in that range, 7 to 8 to 1, and it's really just representative of the entire population.
Yeah, and I personally don't see a problem with it.
No.
I enjoy Nebraska parks.
Well, absolutely, and I think there's this perception on the Nebraska side of the river about the Iowa side, the Pottawattamie County side, and so when we get to show off our parks, when we become a thing on that side of the river, it begins to change perceptions. And that's something I think is really important for this community and for that community to realize.
I 100% agree with that. And I do think it is changing.
Yeah.
I think that as more folks from the west side of the river make their way over here, come out for an evening, have dinner, go for a hike at Hitchcock, or if you're camping, take the camper over to Arrowhead or any of the other places, or make a little bit farther of a drive to Bottom Bend, because typically there's going to be more space there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because I think it's just because it's a little farther. I love Bottom Bend.
Yep.
I love that camp. Yes. But it is farther.
It is.
But I don't mind.
It serves a slightly different audience, but it's also close enough to where if you're looking, to get away on a weekend, it's going to be just far enough to where you feel like you're getting away, but very manageable for anybody in the Omaha side of the river.
Yeah, and that Nishnabada River over there is beautiful.
It is beautiful.
And when you can hike next to it along the trails. And I was out there and camped right after they did the prescribed burn, which was a completely different experience. This was brand new for me. To be around everything that was still black. And every once in a while you'd see a little piece of life starting to pop up. But it was like within probably 10 days. There was even still a little bit of the char smell in the air. But I felt honored to get that experience. And I wasn't planning on it. I didn't know when the burn was going to happen. And when I got over there, I said, all right, this is kind of cool, actually.
And you got to experience kind of what those native plants have adapted to and evolved, not just to withstand, but also to leverage, to utilize to their advantage.
Right.
Fire was a part of the system for thousands of years, predominantly put in place by humans, by the Native Americans that lived here. So those plants figured out how to use that fire, and you will see them spring back to life healthier. They've got the kind of the down vegetation that's gone from the year before. They've got room to grow, puts nutrients back into the soil, stimulates their seed production, does all sorts of good things. So you were seeing just the beginning of those plants kind of beginning to stretch out again after that fire.
Yeah, and I was happy. I was happy that I got that experience.
Yeah, it's very
cool. Because I could have, if I'd have gone a little bit earlier, then it would have just been, okay, this is last year's growth, and I would have gotten to experience it. So now I can kind of get the entire gambit across. So when I go back the next time, I'm curious to see just how much growth has come back since that burn, because I know it's going to look completely different. Well, very grateful that you made the trek over here, braved the heat. as we're having it right now. It is definitely steamy outside, but we can look outside and see guys working on a roof, so it could be worse.
Well, I appreciate the opportunity to come chat. It's always a pleasure, Todd.
All right, this is Jeff Franco, Executive Director of Pottawattamie Conservation. Thank you so much for watching this episode of Pottawattamie County Routes. Don't forget to thank our hometown sponsors, including Brood Awakening of Avoca. Thank you very much for them for jumping on and being such a big part of things. We'll be back very soon with a brand new show. And until then, my name is Todd Studer. We'll see you then.